Good afternoon, I'm Giovanni Dennis with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're joining us online at onespotmedia.com. Take the vaccine. The message from the Prime Minister and a panel of experts in a town hall on vaccines hosted by the Office of the Prime Minister a short while ago. Issues surrounding reports of blood clots and safety of vaccines were also addressed. Pushing back against anti-vaccine protests and influential people who don't support vaccination. A vaccine town hall hosted by the Office of the Prime Minister, with Mr. Holness expressing one message.
The vaccine is safe. Get vaccinated. It is important for your personal health. It is important for the public good, meaning that if we reach this herd immunity level of vaccination, we can go back to normalcy, open our economy, and party and church can keep.
Mr. Holness lamented that influential people against vaccines pose a problem, especially for persons in rural and inner-city communities.
To give them the advice. Now, that could be a danger for us. And of course, they would also get access to perverse information saying, don't take this vaccine or don't do this. And though that kind of information is being circulated widely in our country, people who are opinion leaders, people who are influential in various areas, whether it is church or music or entertainment, they are sometimes messengers of perverse information. And so they don't have.
Professor of Public Health Peter Figueroa sits on the World Health Organization Committee assessing the efficacy of vaccines.
We've looked at this vaccine, the AstraZeneca vaccine. The World Health Organization has approved it as highly effective and safe.
Professor Figueroa addressed growing concerns about reports of blood clots developing persons who have taken the AstraZeneca vaccine in European countries.
The European Medicine Agency investigated this problem. They found that overall there were fewer blood clots in persons who had received the vaccine than what they would normally expect in the population, because people developing clots happens all the time. But they actually found overall there was fewer blood clot formation in those who were vaccinated.
The information from the WHO says 1 in 1 million people who take vaccines may develop a blood clot. In the meantime, Director of Health Services in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Melody Ennis, says vaccines traditionally have done tremendous good to minimize the impact of deadly diseases.
Vaccines have been around for a while and they have prevented serious illnesses. We can go back, and it's not too far back, because if we go back just to the 1950s, persons who had polio were placed in iron lungs. They were unable to breathe on their own for life. And some of these persons are still indeed alive. So we certainly don't want to get back to that stage.
Still on vaccines, Jamaica and other countries which are part of the COVAX facility for COVID-19 vaccines should start receiving doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine by July. Director of the Pan American Health Organization, Dr. Carissa Etienne, says COVAX has secured more than 100 million doses of the vaccine for 2021 and up to 500 million through 2022. Shamila Pullen reports.
Last week, the World Health Organization (WHO) issued an emergency use license for Johnson & Johnson's COVID vaccine. This is now the fourth vaccine to be authorized by WHO. Director of the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, Dr. Carissa Etienne says, with Johnson & Johnson offering protection with just one dose, it will accelerate vaccination efforts. Dr. Etienne says COVAX has secured agreement to acquire over 100 million doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine in 2021 and up to 500 million through 2022. The doses are expected to start arriving in July.
The good news is that vaccine deliveries are picking up throughout our region. every COVAX participating country in the Americas knows exactly how many doses they will be receiving before the end of May. And PAHO's revolving fund is placing orders on behalf of our region and working together with UNICEF and vaccine manufacturers to organize deliveries as quickly as possible.
Nearly 400,000 doses of vaccines have been delivered to member countries via COVAX and PAHO's revolving fund facility since last week. These include 14,400 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine to Jamaica.
Over the next few days, our revolving fund will be delivering nearly 728,000 vaccines to 5 countries. PAHO has placed orders for more than 3.4 million doses so far. For all these countries, even those who received small donations earlier this month, these COVAX deliveries will enable the start of steady vaccination efforts.
Dr. Etienne says there is still much work to do as COVAX gets vaccine from only 2 manufacturers. She says that affects the ability to get vaccines to every country at the same time. But shipments will become more regular as more doses are available to COVAX in the next few months.
Next week, we expect that many countries in the Caribbean will start to see the first COVAX shipments arrive on their shores. Our goal is to ensure that every country in our region that is participating in COVAX receives their first shipment before World Health Day 2021, which is April 7th.
Shamela Pullen, TVJ News.
As the country continues to battle the coronavirus, 8 more people have died from the virus. All 8 are females, 7 of whom are from Kingston and St. Andrew. 519 persons have now died from COVID-19 in Jamaica. Meanwhile, the country also recorded 604 new COVID-19 cases on Thursday. This pushes the number of confirmed cases to 33,970. Kingston and St. Andrew recorded most of the new cases with 130, followed by St. Catherine with 102. Meanwhile, the number of people in hospital is now 371, down from 398. 28 are critically ill. There are currently 17,401 active cases. Over 37 policemen and women in St. Anne were vaccinated on Thursday at the Alexandria Hospital and Ocherius Health Center. Commanding Officer for St. Anne, Superintendent Dwight Powell, says he's hoping 120 more will be vaccinated over the weekend. He was the first officer in the parish to take the vaccine on Thursday.
It is important, Mr. Hines, that leadership, especially those of us who have command, take the responsibility to show that there is absolutely nothing wrong in taking the vaccine. We believe in the science, and the science have proven so far that persons who take the vaccine, they are okay.
Superintendent Paul is encouraging the men and women under his command to take the opportunity to get vaccinated, especially since they are working in the tourist area.
A bit apprehensive, and others are still weighing the option whether or not to take the vaccine. But from the start, we have seen a vast majority indicating that they would, and we're hoping that they would go through with their decision.
There are fresh calls for the Prime Minister to review the current measures in place to contain the spread of COVID-19. It comes as the number of confirmed cases of the coronavirus continues to climb. More in this report.
At least one political analyst believes the Prime Minister's 2021-2022 budget presentation in the House of Representatives yesterday lacked substance. Damian Gordon believes the government's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic so far is inadequate. It's the reason he's calling for a review of the current measures that are in place.
Because we have been doing the same thing for over a year. The same approach we have been using for over a year to manage the COVID crisis. Obviously, based on where we are currently, that approach has not worked.
Also, the Prime Minister revealed that he will be announcing new measures to deal with the spike in COVID-19 cases. Mr. Gordon says an extension of what is currently in place will only continue to fail the Jamaican people.
But if the new measures are similar to the ones, or an extension of the ones that are currently in place, I will be very disappointed. I want it to be very clear about the direction that the country will take as it relates to the management of COVID. And I want it to be very clear that it will be markedly different from the failed approach that we've been using for the last year.
Cody and Barrett, TVJ News.
And it's now time for a break here on the Midday News, but please stay with us. We'll have much more when we return. Welcome back, and we're continuing the news. The hunt is on for a group of gunmen who robbed a supermarket in Seaforth, St. Thomas before engaging the police in a shootout on Thursday. It's reported that armed men posing as customers entered the Any Money Superette store on Main Street in Seaforth and held the employees at gunpoint before robbing them of an undetermined sum of cash. The men later escaped in a purple Toyota Passo motorcar. The Seaforth police were alerted. While making enquiries in the area, a vehicle believed to be the one used by the thieves was seen in the Soho community. As the police approached the car, they were fired on, forcing them to take cover. The men sped off in the vehicle, which later went over into a precipice. 4 men ran from the vehicle and escaped in bushes. It's understood that a total of $200,000 in cash was recovered from the abandoned car. It was also discovered that the car is registered to a charity organization in Kingston. As the government tries to tackle the country's crime problem, it has been revealed that more zones of special operations are coming. Prime Minister Andrew Holness made the disclosure during the budget debate in Parliament last evening.
This year, we are planning to add an additional 2 communities under the zones of special operations and restructure an existing one. The Jamaica Social Investment Fund is charged with managing the social transformation to these communities, and the plans are already in place. This means, Madam Speaker, 2 less communities at war adding to the murder rate.
4 communities are currently declared zones of special operations. They are Greenwich Town, August Town, Mount Salem, and Denham Town. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says work on the Montego Bay bypass will begin shortly. As Sandy Williams reports, it's the first time a major highway project will be financed by Jamaica's resources and not alone.
The time has come to finally get the Montego Bay bypass.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness, in his contribution to the budget debate on Thursday, addressing concerns about the Montego Bay Perimeter Road project in St. James. The project is expected to ease traffic congestion in the second city. Mr. Holness explained that under the project, the Long Hill bypass will be 10.5 kilometers long and will connect the Montego Bay area to the south coast via Montpelier.
The project will improve access from Montego Bay to Jamaica's south coast by providing a direct connection to the Maypen to Williamsfield leg of Highway 2000. The Montego Bay Perimeter project will complement the work that was done by the National Works Agency under the Ferris Cross to Macfield Road Improvement Project in Westmoreland through Midpeel.
The bypass will be completed with a 4-lane highway network which will connect Kingston to Montego Bay.
Also included will be the rehabilitation, expansion and widening of Barnett Street and West Green Avenue to complement works being done on the Montego Bay bypass section of the project.
The Prime Minister lamented the challenges faced in the city over the years which resulted from flooding.
The effect of these flood impacts, if not addressed, will only continue to stymie the growth and prosperity of the city and the people of Montego Bay and Jamaica as a whole. The need for a comprehensive drainage solution for the city of Montego Bay is therefore urgently required.
The project was initially slated to be completed using funds through a loan from the China Exim Bank, but Mr. Holness said Jamaica does not need to borrow money to implement the project.
Highway 2000 was done by borrowed money. The North-South Highway was done by borrowed money. the South Coast Highway was done with borrowed money. North-South, yes. I am pleased to say that the Montego Bay perimeter project will be undertaken and completed without borrowing any funds.
Mr. Holness has dubbed the project as the National Development Project. The China Harbour Engineering Company, CHEC, will be contracted to implement it. The Prime Minister did not specify a start date for the project. Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
Still with the Prime Minister, Mr. Holness is mandating that all sessional committees of Parliament must meet at least once before the end of June. Mr. Holness said that while he understands that the current parliamentary building at Gordon House is not adequate for a fully functional committee system, the work must go on. He was making his contribution to the budget debate in the House of Representatives on Thursday.
Neither does the Parliament have the administrative capacity to support multiple committees meeting simultaneously. Nevertheless, the business of the nation cannot be stalled. Committees that are empaneled under the standing orders must start working on their subject matter and review materials even if they don't have hearings. By the end of June, I am mandating that all sessional committees must have at least one meeting, whether in person or virtually, given the COVID constraints.
Mr. Holness says he is also working to improve the efficiency of the committees.
I've also tasked the leader of government business, who now has parliamentary affairs attached to his portfolio, to immediately and expeditiously undertake a comprehensive review of the system of sessional committees and make recommendations as to the resources needed to improve their effective functioning in the short term.
Last month, the Gleaner reported that despite the controversial removal of opposition members from chairing key parliamentary oversight committees, there has not been much difference in the number of sittings. To other news now, residents of Portland Cottage in Clarendon are demanding their water problems be addressed. The residents say they have been without the commodity for weeks. An area known as Shearers Heights is particularly affected. Residents say it's unreasonable for the authorities to expect them to live without water.
We used to get the water, and NWC, we said we're supposed to come in Maypen and pay $10,000 before the 28th of February, which we comply and we pay. We pay the $10,000, no water. For we pay the water, we get the meter, somebody get meter, no water at all. 3 weeks now we have no water up here. We need somebody to come in and tell us what is really going on. Because if they even do send liquid water, it cannot go in the tank. So the tanks are up there, no water can go up in there. Then said it, by 5 minutes time, the water gone. And they say a corona time now we're not supposed to out of water. So we want to know why we can't get no water.
In the meantime, Councillor for the Rocky Point Division, Winston Mirage, is defending the political directorate on the water issue. He says they have acted many times to get the residents a reliable supply of water.
We have been working on upgrading the water system for the entire Beer area for the longest while. And of course, in Portland Cottage itself, we spent nearly $120 million. We put in a booster pump system with a sump. We put in a 64,000 gallon tank in the Shearer Heights housing scheme at the highest point. We also put in new pipelines, and as we speak, we are presently putting in pipelines in the streets that did not have any pipelines before.
To news overseas, U.S. President Joe Biden has been touting major progress in vaccinating Americans against COVID-19. This comes as more states in the U.S. are seeing an increase in new COVID-19 cases. More from the CNN.
President Joe Biden announcing Thursday.
58 days into our administration, we will have met my goal of administering 100 million shots.
The nation set to hit the milestone on Friday, weeks ahead of the 100-day mark Biden promised. Around 1 in 8 Americans are now fully vaccinated, according to the CDC.
This is a time for optimism, but it's not a time for relaxation.
Across the country, the average daily number of COVID deaths and hospitalizations remains down. But 17 states are seeing increases in the average daily number of new COVID-19 cases.
I think that we are on the cusp of a fourth surge right now.
The increase in cases comes during a spring break travel surge and as many businesses begin reopening their doors. AMC opening 98% of its movie theaters nationwide by Friday. Also on Friday, the CDC is expected to update its physical distancing guidelines for schools, which may mean more children in classrooms.
Indeed, because 6 feet has been such a challenge, science has leaned in, and there are now emerging studies on the question between 3 feet and 6 feet.
As new, more contagious variants of the coronavirus spread, top health officials remain focused on vaccinating as many people as quickly as possible.
If we get the overwhelming population vaccinated, we're going to be in good shape. We ultimately would like to get and have to get children into that mix.
To news in sports, TVJ Sports has learned that the Jamaican team traveling to Austria for a March 25 friendly international against the United States is doing so without a physical trainer. Reports have also surfaced that most of the England-born players invited by the Jamaica Football Federation to make the trip are not holders of Jamaican passports. Karen Madden reports.
The local-based members of the Reggae Boys delegation left Jamaica in a hurry on Tuesday night after the JFF got late word that they would have to physically report to the Austrian embassy in Washington, D.C. to obtain visas. The Federation has not released a full delegates list, but checks by TVJ Sports revealed that a physical trainer has not traveled with the team. National coach Theodore Whitmore, in his last report to the Federation, identified that one should be employed permanently. TVJ Sports sources say there is an issue between the Federation and its physical trainers as it relates to contracts, and a fix could not be found ahead of the team's hurried departure on Tuesday. Concern has also arisen that only one of the 6 new players born to Jamaican parents in England is in possession of a Jamaican passport. The passport is one documentation naturalized citizens use to verify that they have switched nationalities. However, our checks also revealed that documentation is not required to play an international friendly, and the game against the United States on March 25 could form a dress rehearsal for the players to see if they can impress Coach Whitmore. In fact, TVJ Sports understands that the U.S. Soccer Federation says it is okay to use these players once the JFF can show proof that they have applied for the documents. It does not, however, prevent players from opting not to play for Jamaica going forward. Meanwhile, the Jamaica-based members of the delegation are now in Washington awaiting their Austrian visas as well as another COVID-19 test.
I think by tomorrow we should know in terms of who has gotten or who has been denied. But based on what happened yesterday, I do not think anybody will be refused the requisite visa to travel to Austria. So we just anticipate receiving the passports tomorrow. And then we are slated to go to New York. But before that, we're also slated to do the PCR test, which we'll need to travel to Austria.
The England-born players who do not require visas to travel across Europe are expected to join the local-based delegation in Austria.
And that's the Midday News. I'm Giovanni Dennis. Join us at 7 for Primetime News. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, have a good afternoon.